Hello, and welcome to my entry for the Underfell Fangame's Echo competition. This will also double as an overview of Inverted Fate for those who aren't familiar with the comic, the dub, or anything about the AU. I'll be breaking this down, first with a basic premise, followed by an overview of the main characters, important areas, and finally my preferred Echo follower and which side they'd take in the conflict. A link to the Fangame's Game Jolt page will also be provided in the description, as well as a pinned comment on this video. With that said, let's start with a brief introduction. So, as the intro cutscene suggests, Inverted Fate takes place after a failed pacifist run where Asgore reigned victorious, but lost control of his godlike powers as he started to reset the timeline. He awoke in the ruins, reverted back to flower form, but with full memories of the previous world intact. However, history had changed dramatically as the six main characters, or lost souls, exchanged destinies with one another, and the decisions they made in their new positions snowballed to the rest of the world in ways Flowey could never predict. Unfortunately, he never got a chance to really explore this new timeline, as Frisk soon returned, with their memories seemingly erased other than some vague deja vu. And with the full knowledge that he won, Flowey decided to change things up a bit and play the part of a friend, nudging Frisk along their quest while seeking the souls with the full knowledge that he created a new timeline just by accident. With that out of the way, let's move on to our main characters. While Flowey plays the part of Frisk's best friend, this is just an act, a simple means to an end. After all, Frisk is the one with the most determination, they're the one with control over the timeline, and seeing how this world is clearly different from the glimpses he saw of Asgore and others, well, Frisk happens to be the best way to pick up knowledge by nudging them along and encouraging them to play with their reload abilities. The first opportunity arises after Frisk's impromptu death against a group of hostile monsters. Flowey teaches them then that as long as they stay determined, they can escape death and any other consequences. All they have to do is focus, and hey, they can go back as much as they want. However, this is only half of Flowey's objective. After all, the godlike power he had before was so exhilarating, and it was stolen away from him before he could truly enjoy it. True, he got a new timeline as a playground, but as far as he's concerned, it's just not enough, especially now that he aims even higher than before. So, he tells Frisk of a way to break the barrier and free the monsters without sacrificing their soul. All they gotta do is take him to the castle, and he'll take care of the rest. It's a promising agreement, and Frisk chooses to do so without hesitation, seeking a chance to live a life of glory and help the monsters that have treated them so kindly. And later on, Papyrus gets roped into the proceedings, giving Flowey two convenient puppets and a clear path to his goals. The main character in this tale, Frisk is no longer a silent protagonist, but a fully fledged character with a speaking role. By default, they're as sassy as they are friendly, a playful sense of humor, love of wordplay, and a genuine desire to appear cool and confident. They can be blunt, they can be stubborn, and even a bit rude. While they try to show kindness and do the right things, they aren't a precious snowflake who can do no wrong. In fact, they have a selfish side, seeking to be loved and admired by those around them as a result of their immense insecurities. And, thanks to Flowey, they see reloads as a convenient way to escape consequences. This isn't to say that they treat reloads as a way to power trip, test outcomes, and manipulate others. They still genuinely care about the monsters and want to help them escape their underground prison, but they just don't treat the power with the weight it deserves, seeing it as a way to cut corners and escape nasty outcomes. At the start of the story, they only have a vague sense of familiarity with the underground. A few things strike them as nostalgic or comforting, but they just don't understand why. However, as they learn of the string of tragedies, from Asriel and Chara's deaths to new occurrences, it weighs on their conscience and fuels their insecurities further. In truth, this Frisk is a pessimist only pretending to be optimistic. They deny it and act like everything is fine because nobody likes a downer. With an influence like Flowey, you'd think that they'd be in bad shape, but fortunately, they're soon given an extra sense of moral support in the form of Papyrus. While the two had a rocky start, with Frisk finding Papyrus strange in his eccentricities, soon they formed a bond that's at the very heart of Inverted Fate's story. While much of the underground fears and even despises humans, Papyrus offered encouragement, kindness, assistance, and so much more. As of the current arc in the story, they've become a bit more confident thanks to his support, even if they haven't fully overcome their insecurities and baggage. But through it all, they've remained determined. The deuteragonist in this story, which is just a fancy way of saying he's the secondary main character. Think Mike Wazowski compared to Sully, Tulio to Miguel, we're unstoppable to Kim Possible, and you get the idea. Now, you might notice from his picture here that he's dressed in a goofy lab coat and goggles. That's because in this timeline, Papyrus is a self-proclaimed scientific genius, as well as the lab partner to the brilliant and dangerous Undyne. While still the same puzzle-loving, pasta-cooking goofball, this Papyrus is a lot smarter, a lot more aware, and has taken his scientific studies just as seriously as his other pursuits. He created all sorts of wacky contraptions, from functioning teleporters to artificial lava and pocket dimensions solely for Sans' absurd collection of socks. While he initially chose the sciences to pick up where his brother left off, he's grown to love his career and the many applications of science in both cooking and puzzlery alike. He's also extremely hopeful that humans aren't as treacherous as the stories say, that there is good in humanity, and that killing is not the only way. It's for this reason that he promised Asgore to protect the next human who falls, to the point that he not only protects Frisk, but joins him as a travel companion and guide, as well as a party member with some sweet support spells. Papyrus is also fully aware of Flowey's existence, and immediately agreed to help with his and Frisk's plan to free the monsters without casualty, failing to realize that he was being strung along by the manipulative weed. He believes in Flowey so fiercely that he refuses to reveal the exact nature of their plan, even to his own brother. Ultimately, his faith in his new friends is so strong that he's willing to openly support a human in an environment that views them far negatively than before, even if it risks his reputation and his friendship with Undyne, who seeks to claim the final soul herself. Throughout the story, Papyrus's morals are challenged, but he holds to his values through and through. As a quick disclaimer, Inverted Fate runs off of the narrator theory. If you do not like that interpretation, that is perfectly fine, but know that this is my personal preference and it is a deliberate choice in this AU story. With that out of the way, Chara, or Captain Cryptic as Frisk later calls them, is the only character besides Flowey who remembers everything about the original timeline. As a result, they know who Flowey really is, remember Frisk's kind actions in the past, as well as the consequences of their suicide plan, and what it did to their family and the rest of the underground. While they started off resentful toward Frisk and very bitter in the aftermath of Asriel's supposed betrayal, by the end of Frisk's original pacifist run, they had learned that there is strength in showing mercy and that the world isn't purely kill or be killed. And yet that wasn't enough. Asriel still won. The old timeline was torn asunder, and now Frisk is none the wiser. Now they're being strung along by the soulless husk of Chara's sibling, and this leaves them conflicted. Do they tell Frisk the truth at the risk of them not believing? Do they keep their mouths shut and let things unfold naturally, hoping that Frisk and Papyrus will make the correct choice? Does it even matter when they already failed once? They feel powerless, as they are but a voice in Frisk's head. However, as the story progresses and Frisk starts talking to them, and trying to get them to come out of their shell, Chara starts to open up ever so slightly. They're still wary, but they've started subtly nudging Frisk toward the truth in their own way, along with providing the same snarky commentary they're known for. Ultimately, this Chara is pretentious, sarcastic, cynical, and far from a beacon of kindness, but they are not pure evil and ultimately do care about Frisk, though they'll never admit it. They're more of a gray area, having learned from Frisk's actions. Time will tell where the story takes them next. In the aftermath of his children's deaths, Asgore declared war on humanity. However, circumstances prevented him from truly keeping to this plan, and in a desire to atone, he left for the ruins, leaving Toriel to guide the monsters peacefully. Fast forward about a century, and Asgore's taken his role as caretaker quite seriously. Colorful patches of flowers line nearly every corridor. He's provided snack tables, beanbag chairs, and converted empty corridors into comfortable lounges, all while softening more dangerous puzzles and inviting the ruins residents into his home for weekly tea gatherings in pleasant company. The monsters love him so much, in fact, that children argue over which one of them is his favorite, and parents eagerly allow Asgore to babysit their kids whenever they're too busy. He's always willing to lend a floppy ear. With his jolly smile and warm heart, you'd think he doesn't have a care in the world, but in reality, he's a troubled soul. Guilt from his previous actions weighs upon his soul, and he often regrets his abandonment of his kingdom and his queen. By the time Frisk falls, he's a very burdened old man, but he hides it under a cheery demeanor and a desire to support this child, hope that maybe this time it will be different. He's also close friends with Napstablook, having helped the shy ghosts with their self-esteem, and is a mentor figure to Papyrus, who visits the ruins more frequently to drop off freshly cooked pastas, new puzzles, and all sorts of tales from the world beyond. Napstablook remains the same shy, soft-spoken, and music-loving ghost we all know and love, with a few key differences. First, they're far less depressed, partly because Mettaton is still a part of their life, and partly due to Asgore's support. In this new timeline, they're Mettaton's primary sound mixer, occasional co-star, and beloved cousin through and through. They often tour with him in Chara, occasionally putting on live and televised performances, and are a big source of Mettaton's overall presence in the ruins, due to sharing his merchandise and even donating some extra TVs from the dump. However, the pressure of stardom drives them to retreat to the ruins a fair bit, where they often stay in Asgore's house to de-stress and unwind. It's on one of these short escapes that they encounter Frisk, and after a silly performance, the two become fast friends. Blookie remains one of Frisk's most vocal supporters from that point on, and are a recurring character in this tale. One fateful Friday, a lazy, pun-loving skeleton ordered a big bucket of fries at Grillby's. He wandered down to the trash dump in all its gloomy glory, and proceeded to fry some garbage. Why? The Royal Guard just happened to be hosting tryouts that day. The trash piles is target practice. His punchline got Toriel laughing harder than she had in practically decades, and in time, Sans worked his way up the ranks in the Royal Guard, eventually scoring a spot as lieutenant and chief of Snowdin's canine unit. Of course, he doesn't take his work too seriously, preferring to treat his subordinates with a pat on the back, a trip to Grillby's, plenty of breaks, and an overall cheery attitude. This laid-back demeanor has made him a hit with the Snowdin locals, as his love of humor lifts the spirits of those otherwise burdened by the more hopeless underground. Of course, it's not all smiles and laughs with Sans. Deep down, he knows that things aren't as hot as they used to be. Moreover, when Frisk finally arrives and Papyrus takes a shine to them, he's left watching with suspicion and concern. After all, even if this human turns out to be a good person, the fact remains that they can't leave without Toriel's soul. They're human number 7, the final soul needed to break the barrier, and while he has no particular desire to rush things along, he knows that other monsters, especially Undyne, may try to take their life. So he watches from a distance, keeping a light tone around the kid, but with doubts ever present, even if he slowly but surely grows attached, against his better judgment. While captain of the Royal Guard, Alphys is far from a brash, hot-blooded, and aggressive hero. Instead, she plays a far more distant role. She's the brains behind the Guard, the strategist who maps out every single possibility when making battle strategies, pours hours into researching both monster and human history, and designs goofy cosplay armor for every guard because humans are statistically stronger, so clearly modeling after some of their greatest warriors is a way to turn their own power against them. But in reality, she's just a giant nerd. In truth, her position brings a great deal of stress. She's the captain. She's supposed to protect the entire underground. She's supposed to act as a symbol of hope, an authority that everyone can count on. Monsters expect her to stand strong in the face of dangerous humans, but in truth, Alphys admires humanity. Having heard tales from Gerson and Toriel, pour and over-research due to her love of anime, manga, and other human media, she just can't get enough. In fact, she joined the Guard for a chance to meet a human, back in the days when Toriel's influence was stronger and the Guard was expected to protect and guide humans rather than kill them. This all changed when Undyne discovered the Dreamer family tapes 3 years ago and made them public to the entire kingdom. It reopened old wounds, as past tragedies bubbled up to the surface yet again. Since then, monsters are far more desperate for freedom than ever, and the Royal Guard has gone from a defensive force to an all-out offense. This in turn has brought Alphys a great deal of stress and conflict, but what can she do? Toriel shied away when all seemed lost. She hasn't been seen in years, so where does that put her? In the end, Alphys assumed the guise of a cold, calculating commander, clad in full armor with a helmet that deepens her voice. She buries her true feelings out of the belief that she must put the needs of the many before her own selfish whims, and out of the fear that if they discover the truth, monsters would lose faith in her, and the Guard as well. Mettaton remains the superstar of the Underground, but where the canon Mettaton abandoned his friends and family, this version never got the chance. Undyne refused to build his body unless he told Napstablook and Chara the truth, and as a result, he's roped them both into a celebrity lifestyle as members of his sound team. To his average viewer, he's every bit as charismatic and egotistical as you would expect. While his shows gear more toward action, he'll still call his fans darling and beauties without hesitation. However, all is not well with this mechanical marvel. True, he got a robot body and a chance at the spotlight, but his new form came equipped with real anti-human weapons as a way to ensure the safety of his loved ones, his audience, and keep the hopes of the people strong in light of past tragedies. Mettaton agreed to this not because he shares said feelings, but because his true admiration of humanity is as controversial as his dear friend Alphys. But like Alphys, he keeps his real thoughts only to those closest to him. He sacrifices his own creative integrity to keep a captive audience, even if deep down he despises it. Where he differs from Alphys is that he's perfectly willing to help Frisk, especially after they befriend Napstablook, just with an air of subtlety. Undyne is the royal scientist, beloved by all for her ambition, her unwavering confidence and determination, and desire to go above and beyond in improving life for monsters underground. She's bombastic, over-the-top, and prone to creating absurd anime-inspired inventions for the sake of living out power fantasies. When she's not making giant swords out of lasers or cool mech suits, she's always trying to find ways to make everyone's dreams come true. Want proof? Look no further than the holographic sky that spans over Snowdin Town. However, Undyne's desire to help her fellow monsters has led her to some unfortunate tragedies. 3 years ago, she made a bold promise that she would break the barrier using only her scientific skill. At this time, she took Papyrus on as her apprentice, and the two embarked on a grand experiment that ultimately ended in disaster. During this time, she discovered the Dreamer tapes and broadcast them publicly, rekindling old feelings of bitterness and sorrow, and ultimately pushing Toriel into seclusion. Something in Undyne snapped that day, and when she failed to keep her promise, she became adamant that she had to claim the final human soul. She had to break the barrier, and she had to make up for her mistakes. She'll do anything to set monsters free, even if it means taking the life of Papyrus' new friend. While she hardly blames him for helping a human, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and humans do not deserve mercy. Toriel once played an active part in ruling the Underground. After Asgore's departure, she took a stand, decreeing that every human was to be judged on their individual merits, and ordering the Royal Guard to usher any humans to her so that she could properly teach them of the Monster Kingdom. When the people spoke out against her decision, she tried to expand education, including structured history lessons on both humans and monsters to give a balanced perspective. In fact, even aside from humans, Toriel's leadership ushered in a renaissance of learning and innovation. Monsters are far more informed as a result, both in terms of their own history and in a broad field of studies, from the arts to the sciences. Even poor Temmies don't have to pay a ridiculous sum to get to Kool Egg. Education is public, and even in her absence, this remains true. You would think her guidance would yield a flourishing kingdom, but while some adored Toriel's leadership, there were always hushed murmurs of dissent, and in time her hopes of peace would come crumbling down in the form of repeated tragedies. Now Toriel is but a hollow shell of who she used to be. She has not been seen in years, living secluded within the castle, with Sans and Alphys as her sole messengers to the rest of the Underground. But ultimately, her influence is but a faint whisper at best. The people have spoken. They want justice, not peace, and she's too tired to contest it any longer. Since the character overviews were already pretty long, I'll keep the areas short and sweet. Here are just some basic tidbits about the changes in each zone. Starting with the ruins, colorful flowers decorate almost every single room. Daisies, daffodils, golden flowers, roses. Asgore's gone a long way to keep some colorful diversity in his plant specimens. In addition to the aforementioned beanbags and snack tables and other assorted comforts, he's also gone out of his way to remove every single spike in the puzzles, as well as add pillow padding for any pitfall, and replacing the big spike bridge with a simpler bridge with a bridge seed puzzle required to proceed. Echo flowers fill certain areas, like the aforementioned bridge, which have immortalized Mettaton's voice during a visit long ago. His home contains many sweets on the tables, along with spare teacups for any guests. The former room of Toriel has been renovated into a guest bedroom, which Napstablook uses frequently. Moving to Snowdin Town, the forest itself remains vaguely familiar, although the skeletons have certainly made their mark. Beyond the initial trees lies a simple metallic platform designed to turn whatever stands upon it invisible. The puzzles have been completely renovated with Papyrus' scientific sensibilities. A large pit covered in invisible magic glass forms a maze that must be traversed very carefully. Fortunately, he's sensible enough to have provided teleporters to those who fall. A more complex puzzle lies further ahead with invisible platforms that require perfect timing. Instead of a cardboard station, Papyrus has built an advanced metallic security station that he usually uses to tap into Undyne's camera feeds. However, before Frisk's arrival, he covered as many cameras as he could with crayon drawings, which Frisk unfortunately removed. The true changes lie in Snowdin Town. Gone are the under-snow tunnels, replaced with more modern teleporters. The aforementioned hollow sky spans completely over the town, with cloud patterns, a day and night cycle, shifts in artificial weather. It's designed to give monsters a feeling of what surface life might be like. A golden statue of sand sits at the center of the town, a symbol of the people's hopes in the Royal Guard, and their love of their lazy lieutenant. Papyrus's ruddy wood shed from Canon is replaced with a more advanced, cool shed, full of work-in-progress inventions. The skeleton house also contains scientific goodies like a swirling black vortex that leads to a socket dimension, where Sans stashes all his junk. Waterfall contains more high-tech puzzles, requiring travelers to use their wits to maneuver these empty corridors. Beyond the initial colored lasers and lore quizzes lies the most notable change, Fort Aquarius, a military stronghold built after the tragic waterfall incident. The fortress contains many able-bodied guards on constant patrol, as well as a vast array of traps, from flamethrowers to spear turrets, to spear-wielding robots. To disable the security, one must answer more logic-based puzzles, created by Papyrus and Alphys. The fort also contains a vast library, a meeting chamber where the guard and science divisions, and formerly Toriel, hash out strategies and discuss current affairs. To many monsters, it is a symbol of safety and hope. Past the fort, familiar places like the trash dump remain, but the memorial statue is gone and replaced with a gravesite to a mysterious mage who is said to have assisted Gerson and Toriel in ending the waterfall incident. Even further lies the town of Forge Spring, with crystal-studded houses, a growing business district, and a memorial to those lives lost in the tragedy so many decades ago. Undyne grew up in this town, and Alphys migrated there for the sake of learning more about monster history. Its school is one of the most prestigious in the entire Underground, so even characters like Sans may have attended at one point or another. Hotland is far more dangerous than ever, full of treacherous traps designed to ward off humans. The conveyors are now weaponized with spikes and electrical barriers. Floating platforms replace the steam vents, while fireball traps rest below the lava. A path of air turbines threatens to blow wary travelers through holographic lava projections and into traps filled with threatening robots. Normally, these traps and puzzles are all inactive, but in light of Frisk's arrival, Undyne's pulling out all the stops. At the current point in the comic, Mettaton's TV studios, as well as the resort and the core, remain unseen, and there are many secrets left to be revealed. But hopefully this gives at least some idea of the AU and its overall feel. Let's jump back to the Underfell Fangame and its Echo contest. Now, for my choice in Echo follower, I choose none other than Papyrus. After all, he's not only a constant travel companion to Frisk, but he also has a deep interest in the multiverse and has even created a device called the Interdimensional Transporter, which has given him at least some contact with outside universes. Within battle, he plays a largely supportive role, creating a bone shield for Frisk that can deflect enemy projectiles, as well as mixing and matching chemicals for random effects, including status boosts, status inflictions, and sometimes completely random results, like extending Lesser Dog's neck. He's very experimental, and his technical skills could make for some fun skills as well, but I leave this up to the discretion of the game team, as I'm not entirely sure how these new followers would be handled, even on the chance that I am chosen. It's a no-brainer that Papyrus would side with Ink, as he's not one for destruction and ultimately is a pacifist at heart. At any rate, thank you so much for taking the time to hear me ramble on about my universe and my goofy characters. Have a fantastic day, and best of luck both with the contest as well as making the game. For those who came just for the lowdown on Inverted Fate, I hope you learned something cool and interesting. I'll be linking the comic in the description as well as the comments, as well as the fangame, of course. Anyway, have a fantastic day and stay awesome.